I think the biggest missed opportunity is people who forget about the benefits of education and they go too much to persuasion. I think there's a lot of products that they don't get stuck on convincing people why they should try them, but on educating them in really smart ways, using smart marketing tactics on how to be successful. So, some companies get this great with really strong PLG mentalities, but there's a lot of marketing teams I see where they don't look at education as really part of their job.
I'm Eric Fulweiler, and this is Scratch, bringing you marketing lessons from the leading brands and brains rewriting the rulebook from scratch for the world of today.
Hey everyone, my guest today is Ariel Kelman. He is the president and CMO at Salesforce, obviously a business that you've heard of that is now very focused on realizing the future of the agentic enterprise. So we get into a lot of that good stuff, AI agents, AI, the 3-layer model that y'all will hear about from us pretty soon. But so many learnings and some great perspective from Ariel from the seat that he sits in within the industry that is really driving a lot of the disruption and the change that we're going into. And I really love how he talks about it. And, we were kind of going back to, Salesforce is an original challenger brand. You think about 1999, 2000, Web 1.0 and how much of a challenger and a successful challenger they were to the traditional tech industry. And he talks about thinking about technology and AI as just helping you get rid of the dumb things that you have to do in your job, helping them go away. I thought that was really interesting. He also talks about how to drive innovation within teams in a way that I hadn't heard about before. This idea of pushing teams to relax constraints as a way of driving innovation, which I'm definitely going to be thinking about. And then we talk about, of course, if you know Salesforce, you've probably heard of Dreamforce and, the massive conference that they do now 16 years in, but also the broader investment that they've made into community and how that's really been a flywheel to how they grow. And he gives some advice for anybody in a business that is looking to get buy-in and budget to do more community and kind of brand level marketing. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Ariel Kelman of Salesforce. Ariel, how are you?
I'm doing well, Eric. How's it going today?
Things are good here in London. I know you are very busy over in San Francisco, so I really appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, of course.
So, Ariel, before we get into the conversation that we prepared for today, there's an icebreaker question that we ask every guest, which is, what is one challenger brand that you're particularly passionate about right now and why?
Let's see, one challenger brand. So a brand that is really trying to shake things up and do things differently.
Yeah, although actually, I think it's interesting, especially speaking to, CMO of Salesforce. How would you define challenger brand, or what does it bring to mind for you, that
Well,
term?
I think companies go through various stages between being the incumbent and being the challenger.
Mm,
You can't, and you got to. I always think you got to market a little bit differently. In some places where, the obvious one's the competitor situation. Do you talk about your competitors? Well, in markets where you're the dominant player, I think it doesn't make sense. But even if you're a big company, if there's a new space that you're going into where you have a, single digit market share that you're very unhappy with, and there's a big player in there, you're going to treat that differently because you're the challenger in that market. I think back to when I was at Amazon and we were trying to get into the CDN business against Akamai. Like, we talked about that differently than when we were talking about, cloud infrastructure and the other competitors in that space where, we had a lead. So I think, unless you're staying in the same market the whole time, I think you constantly have to look at yourself as a challenger in all of your new markets.
I really like that. So it's less about, it's actually, something that we say all the time. It's not about the size or scale of the company or even the stage of it. It's more about kind of the situation and the
Yeah, it's a
objective.
situation. You think about it from a brand awareness perspective. That there are specific people who have, ideas in their head for different things they're going to buy. Of
Yeah.
who do they think of and who do they prefer? And people are not simple focus group subjects. They have very complex views, and often their views of what companies are good at, are kind of diverse and multidimensional depending on what you're asking them about.
Yeah. So maybe we can stay on that for a second. Taking the Amazon AWS example or something from Salesforce, if you'd like, what is the biggest difference? You mentioned that Akamai example where it was a different kind of approach that you used in that specific instance. But how do you think about if you need to shift gears, what the biggest changes are if and when you do?
I mean, I think a lot of it is, just going back to basics and thinking from first principles of what are you trying to
Yeah.
accomplish. You think about like a lot of our focus right now is on a product called Agentforce, and we really believe there's a massive transformation happening with AI agents that are really augmenting people's capabilities and letting companies do things that really weren't possible before. And this is something that didn't exist for anyone uh, a year ago. We launched Agentforce at Dreamforce last year in September, but really AI agents, the whole concept, in a meaningful way is about a year old. And, that's forced us to think about things in a different way. This isn't talking about the 143rd Salesforce automation feature. This is about talking to people about a new technology, what's possible if you have that new technology, how it's going to change the way we work, and then why is it worth it? What are the benefits that you're going to get? So when we talk about letting people become 2, 3, 4 times more productive in certain activities, it just opens up new possibilities. But it just transcends the typical incrementalism that you see in the technology industry of here's the latest release, which I think is fun. I mean, as a marketer, I think the best challenge is when you can have something disruptive, new technology, that really causes people to change, causes people to open their minds to looking at new solutions, whether it's new types of solutions or new vendors in a way that wasn't possible before. So we have, you know, we have, we don't make event management software at Salesforce. But one of the first agents that we did last year at Dreamforce is we built an event agent so that people coming to Dreamforce could go and answer any questions from, is there an analytics session tomorrow? Is there vegan food at the party? I happen to be asking, is there any beef at the party? But being able to have that direct connection with your customers at a massive scale with customer support resources with infinite capacity, that now I guess we're in the event industry. We're the event vendor industry now. We have something for that. So you can't take for granted your earlier perspectives. And for me, entering these new markets is always pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned day one thinking, which I don't know if originated or at least is best known from Amazon. That's actually the reason that the name of this podcast is Scratch, because we think what it means to be a challenger is think and act like from scratch for the world of today. And another way that I think about it is, my previous role before starting Rival, I was CMO of a fintech business, and we built a lot of kind of next generation digital first products for banks for the most part. And of course, in that world, and in a lot of big tech, you talk a lot about technical debt building up within organizations, right? So the technology that was fit for purpose for 10 years ago, or in the banking world, a lot of it is from 20 or 30 years ago, obviously is not fit for purpose for the world of today, but it's really hard to get rid of it, to rip it out, to replace it. So
Sure.
many of them have to kind of build something different. And I think marketing debt is the same thing in many organizations. So whether it's scratch, whether it's day one, whether it's marketing debt, whatever way into that perspective and opportunity you take, I think it's the same thing where what it's all about is thinking about the need of the audience, the category convention, and the value of the product from scratch as it is right now
Yeah.
without any of that baggage or legacy.
Yeah, I think that's important. And also, like when you talk about the technical debt and thinking about things from scratch, like I also think about being empathetic with the customer of
Mm.
what they have to deal with when people have built all of these systems based on doing things in a certain way. You have to think through, well, what do we need to deliver to help them be successful? So you think about we deal with this issue with Agentforce, where, okay, if you want to apply generative AI and AI agents to helping consumers with cooking, like, okay, you're just good to go because they went and trained on all the knowledge of the internet and all the recipes. But in the business context, you cannot have accurate, useful AI output if you don't have your data in order. if the LLM doesn't have access to understand the context of the situation, so you have a customer who has a customer support problem, you need the AI to understand, well, what products have they bought? Do they have any current customer service issues? Who am I talking to? What issues do they deal with? Are we trying to sell them anything at this point? Where are they geographically? Because that may affect certain compliance things like solutions you can or are not allowed to deliver them. And so if you don't have your data in order, you can't have accurate, predictive, useful, and generative AI results. And that means your agents will not be able to do things that are useful. So we have this product called Data Cloud, which is our customer data platform. And a lot of the work we've been doing with our customers for the past 3 years, this product's been around, is using that to really harmonize all the different data sources they have in the company so that AI can now take a customer ID and understand everything about it so it can help that customer, whether you're marketing to them, whether you're providing customer support. And so we do this internally. So I have a data cloud implementation. It reaches out to 902 different data sources. We think of as data streams. So it's everything from traffic from our website to our Snowflake marketing data warehouse to third-party data sources. But it is taking all this data from over 250 million raw profiles of customers and harmonizing them down to 151 million unique profiles that we sort of grouped together in about 800 segments. And so that pre-work that we did was necessary to really get the full value of AI agents. And so building that solution to pull the data together and understanding that that was required to really get the most out of AI is really how we think about it, to think of the whole way through, not to just think of customers as having this, magical utopia of turning something on and it immediately works.
Yeah, we have a big piece coming out around kind of our perspective on AI, and the headline is basically that, these cycles of technological disruption do repeat themselves because it's a lot of the human psychology and sociology and economics that drive what happens within it. And so we kind of relate it to, obviously, the technology, and probably the impact of it is going to be different, but like the internet in 1999 or 2000, around that time. And really kind of what we're saying is that CMOs need to prepare for the marathon, not just the sprint.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a lot of sprinting
Yeah.
going on right now. And
Well,
and within that,
you can do both
go
at the
ahead.
same time, though. I mean, I think that's
Yes.
one of the things to think about is that, with the new technologies, you can't just say, I'm going to go tackle the 2-year problem up front. You got to get quick wins. Otherwise, you lose momentum in the company. So that's the good thing with AI agents. Because if you want to get an agent up on your website that can answer product questions, hand off leads to your salespeople, we did that first. That took a couple weeks to get up and running. And we now have had 700,000 conversations with customers with our AI agents on our website, in less than the past year. Meanwhile, while we're also developing longer term, more sophisticated projects that, almost reinvent how we
Yeah.
think about things like lead flow. So I like to always think about, you take the new technology and you get the quick wins in parallel with doing some of the longer things.
Yeah, it's about perspective, really, and having both of those horizons, because I would argue there are a lot of businesses that are only, might be unfair, but maybe too focused kind of on the sprint. But I think the bigger, there's not having the momentum internally, but I think the bigger risk is just kind of getting left behind. I think one of the biggest things on CMO's mind is, how do I keep up with the pace of change, especially around technology and AI? And you have to be out there. You have to be using the technology. You have to be finding ways to apply it internally. But a big part of kind of this work that we're putting out is talking about what we call the 3-layer model. It's very similar to what you're talking about. But the technology itself, AI agents in this case, is just one layer, right? And underneath that is data. And on top of that is the humans, the talent that you have using the technology. And so again, to perspective, which is going to drive strategy and investment, it needs to be all 3 of those layers, not just the technology itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of our customers have, they've sort of said, well, if I'm going to start with AI agents, do I think about autonomous use cases or augmentation use cases? The autonomous use case is when the AI agent will just talk directly to the customer. Augmentation is when you think about, your salesperson having, the world's best infinite capacity salesperson sitting on your shoulder trying to help you. Same with customer support. So a lot of our customers start with the employee facing agents to begin with, and then start to combine them together. So you think about like a company like Finnair, which is one of our Agentforce customers. So they're Finland's largest airline, and they get a lot of customer service inquiries. And what they're able to do is both reduce the amount of inquiries that come to their human reps, and then when their human reps are working I was thinking marketing, the customer service issues, they have Agentforce next to them, making sure they're always giving the best possible answer. So we find like, you got to handle both of those aspects at the same time. People get a little bit myopic of like, how do we remove the humans? And I think that's not really the point right now. There's so much productivity gain in being able to augment the capabilities of your human employees with AI agents.
Yeah, it's the specific objective. It's the job to be done at the end of the day, and how technology but in many cases it's humans can best solve that. So, Ariel, do you have a challenger brand that you want to share?
There's a company called Ramp. Have you heard of them? You're in fintech.
Yes, that's a good one.
So I met those guys a couple years ago, and it just uses this example of you think about managing expenses for a lot of people, and this kind of gets to my world of thinking about like, what are dumb things that we should be able to get rid of with technology? Well, the idea that you have to pass out an expense guidelines document and tell people to read it and say, Eric, you really need to follow the guidelines. Did you look at the wiki? And tell salespeople you can only expense lunches with your customers. It's like, that should be obvious, but then they don't, and then they get in trouble, and people do audits, and Ramp's like, well, why don't we use software to create rules? If this rep is if they are a sales rep in New Jersey, well, we'll tell the system, reject every credit card transaction that's outside of the state of New Jersey, or, route it to their manager for approval before it goes through. And, software defined credit cards. And they do a lot more than that, but it's just not how the credit card and expense kind of vendors thought at the time. And it's just so obvious. That's what I always love, is when you come up with something that, really, you'd say changes people's life in a consumer way, but in a business way, upends how people think of like what's possible and what this type of solution should do for me, and this type of solution. Like in these companies, it's, oh, well, I have a corporate credit card vendor over here, and then I have like Concur or whatever my expense report system is, and they're doing different things. So they're that's a company. I think they're crushing it, and they continue to do well because they're not fitting into the existing categories.
It is interesting from a again, I worked in fintech before, and we've done a lot of work in fintech and financial services. We actually work with one of Ramp's competitors. But how you described what they do has given me a completely different perception on them, because I would argue that actually a lot of their advertising, and of course marketing is not just advertising, but a lot of their advertising, I'm not sure communicates their point of difference. If you ask me what's good about Ramp, I'd say they seem innovative, and they're the classic make business financial operations easier. But I'm going to go check out more. I actually think that they're on our list. I think they got nominated we're putting out this Rival 50 list, this annual list of like the top 50 challenger brands that we've come across. And I think they were definitely on there. So it'd be interesting to see how they do in the actual ranking at the end based on their marketing or their advertising against the principles that we have for challenger brands. Hey everyone, just another quick interruption. If you're listening to this podcast and you're not already part of our AMP community on WhatsApp, would love for you to get involved. So AMP is a community that we started at the beginning of the business, really, just to kind of bring together some of the interesting people that we were talking to, the marketers that we were coming across, many of whom have been on this show as well. And so now AMP is about 300 senior marketers from around the world, from various categories, different stages, challengers, incumbents. And it's really a place where people can share questions, can share resources, can make new connections, can use folks as sounding boards. And for those that are in it,
You know, it is a very vibrant community. It's really taken on a life of its own, which is amazing. So if you're listening to this and you want to get involved, please go to our website, weareRival.com. There you can find the application form or reach out to me or someone at Rival directly. Thanks so much.
Obviously, everybody listening has heard of Salesforce, but maybe people don't know the full kind of universe of where the business and the brand is today. So can you please give us an overview for those listening, and then we'll get into the conversation that we had prepped for today.
Sure. So if you hadn't heard of Salesforce, a lot of people will ask, what is Salesforce? So let me give you an overview. Salesforce was founded in 1999, so we're about a little over 25 years old. And what we're really focused on right now is helping customers build what we think of as an agentic enterprise. So it's taking AI agent technology that can allow humans and AI to work together to solve problems all around the world of customers. How you sell, how you market, how you service your customers. And really giving you a data foundation to pull in all the data that you have about your customer, organize that, and then to harness that data through interfaces for all of your human employees so they can really have the most effective interactions with your customers, and to have incredibly effective AI agent power interactions with your customers through all the different engagement channels, whether it's AI agents for customer service, integrations into digital media, email, SMS, WhatsApp. Think about Salesforce being at the center of all of your engagement with customers, both through your employees and through AI.
Love it. And I was excited for this conversation. Obviously, Salesforce is a big name, but I think more importantly, it's one of the OG challenger brands that we always reference. And I feel like maybe it's a question actually. It feels from the outside like it's still very much part of the DNA and the culture of the company, that kind of challenger mindset. And I know that we talked about it a little bit earlier, but how much does that manifest for you as CMO, kind of the original Salesforce as the challenger within the old tech industry?
Yeah, I mean, it is in the DNA of our company, especially
Yeah.
when you have a founder who's still the CEO and the company is larger. We're constantly looking at things. I would say it's a little bit of a sense of entitlement, where we just feel this strong belief that everyone is entitled to have all the dumb things they have to deal with go away. So you think about back to when we started the company. And Mark said, why can't Salesforce automation be as easy as buying a book on Amazon? That you think about what people had to deal with, these year-long, super expensive implementations to do things like Siebel. So you could just do something as simple as entering a forecast, and to have any change in a field or record. Oh, I want to store a different type of, field here. Oh, well, that's going to be a 2-month-long IT project. It's like, no, people shouldn't have to deal with that. We're going to have a completely different way to do it, where you can just go into a web interface and say, add field, save, and then boom, it's all out there. And that mentality of looking at problems in a way that we think that things shouldn't have to be as hard as they are today, is part of that. If you kind of look at, and a lot of it is you have to be willing to disrupt your own business, to look at what's not acceptable with the current way of working. This is something I think Apple has, always been great at, of being not afraid to cannibalize its own products. So we look at our own business processes with a challenger mindset of, if you look at lead follow-up. So you know how, like, this is in the B2B world, you get, you generate a bunch of leads for your salespeople, you score them, you route the high ones to your salespeople, and then all the rest, you put into some kind of email nurture campaign, but really a lot of them are just in the garbage. And for us, over the past 10 years, we haven't followed up at all on 20 million leads, either because they're too low scored for the reps to pay attention to them, or they're in some kind of nurture thing. But when you think of a world with AI agents where you can have unlimited capacity of your best SDR, think of the the low end sales people who do follow up on leads. If you can have unlimited capacity, well, you can change that whole business process. You can say it's unacceptable that you don't follow up on every single lead. And so we built an SDR agent that we have internally we've been using here. And so we're having about 14,000 leads every week that would have been in the garbage heap are getting followed up on. And we're really turning some of them into opportunities. And that's just like found money. But we could have easily said, no, like this existing process, we've been doing it for a long time. We score the leads, it works great. But it's to constantly look both internally and externally and say, what are things that are going on that are just dumb? They're just unacceptable. We need to be able to think about it differently. And is there any new technology that can, relax constraints? In my mind, that's like one of the biggest things of, if I sort of switch a little bit to managing a large team, that you need to, of how you get your teams to innovate is to push them to think about what's required to have them relax constraints of things they said weren't possible before. In this case, it's that, well, we can only follow up on the leads that score 4 and 5 on a 1 to 5 scale. Well, why? Oh, we don't have capacity. Well, what could change that? And so I always try and apply that in different places of asking people to write down, like, what are all the things you can't do that in a perfect world you would like to do that are slowing you down or making you, not as successful as you could be in this project?
It is the most misunderstood role within the C-suite.
Absolutely everything about the industry changed.
CMOs are really f***ed.
Out of all the Fortune 1000 businesses, there's only 41 of them that have a CMO on their board.
I think you're going to see more functions that were traditionally in the selling realm moving toward marketing.
In today's world, and especially as we look to the future, the role of the CMO is at a crossroads.
They'll be taken in by cheap parlor tricks.
We need to reinvent and reimagine marketing totally.
Deliver on your demand gen goal or lose your job.
If you can do that and make your CEO look good at the same time, actually that's a really powerful thing for a CMO. It's not enough to just push that on the juniors in your department.
What does the future of the CMO role actually look like? So Ariel, I want to make sure that we talk about this concept of customer zero that you use at Salesforce. So what is customer zero? Why does it matter? And how do you apply it internally?
I mean, this goes in the software industry. There's very few really good breakthrough products where the companies had not done this concept. I think originally people talk about dogfooding, but it's like, look, use your own damn product. You're going to learn a lot from that. You should be the first product. If you think of enumerating a list starting with 0, you should be customer 0. And, so I'll take an example of for our Agentforce product. We have, if you go to our help website, help.salesforce.com, there's an agent that can answer customer problems. And they were, after I think the first agent we did was our Dreamforce event agent. But the first, I'd say, sophisticated Agentforce deployment that we really focused on was this help site. It's like, customer service, the obvious, most obvious use case for AI agents. You have LLMs are really good at synthesizing massive amounts of information. You can ask it a question. How do I do this? How do I fix this? I mean, I can take ChatGPT, take a picture of a tomato plant and say, what's wrong with this plant, right? So it should be great, but you have to pull together all of this data, integrate your processes. There's a lot of complexity there. So what we did is we just rolled it out, and we basically created a team between engineering, our IT organization, and our customer service group, and drove one of the most intense projects in the history of our company to iterate and iterate and iterate, and to have, as any new technology, you start to use it, this works, this doesn't work, to have that instant feedback loop to your engineering team, to basically be revving, with every 2-week sprint on new code that's coming out based on this customer getting. And of course, the internal customer doesn't get to say, I'm not going to try this new feature you came out with. You're like, yes, we're going to try it because we're trying to iterate and make this better together. So they sacrifice as a customer a little bit of being the guinea pig, but it's just invaluable for making a great product. I mean, it's literally 10 times faster to iterate because you're removing the friction of having another company to work with. It's hard. I mean, some companies struggle with this. If I, you know, date myself, like there was this story of when Microsoft was building Windows NT, they made the developers write their code on machines running Windows NT. And like it crashed so much that they actually lost time. So you got to do it in the right way. But for us, it's been invaluable. So this help agent now has done 1.6 million cases, about 55,000 customer support conversations a week, and resolving about 75% of them. And I don't think we would have the same quality of results for our actual external customers if we hadn't done this internal dog fooding or this customer zero work. And it just pervades the company where it's in our culture. We'll have a new product and it's like, okay, what's our customer zero story? It's sort of funny. It used to be, I don't know, for a long time, B2B tech marketing, your internal stories were sort of thought of a little bit as a crutch, like, oh, you couldn't get any external customers. But the more disruptive and new the technology is, what I found is the more customers are hungry to learn, well, how the hell are you doing this? Right. And so when I talk to our customers, using an AI agent, having AI robots talking to your customers to solve their problems is very new and different, complicated, maybe even sounds a little scary. So they want to know, like, how did you do this? How do you kind of navigate all these sort of complex things of when should the human get involved? How do we make sure we don't say anything that messes up our brand or gets us in trouble? How do we integrate with other systems? So they want to know, how do we do it? And so our customer support team, they're focused on making our customers successful, but they're also involved in our sales cycles a lot now, educating our customers about how we did it and what we learned. What are the 50 things that we did wrong that we learned from that we wouldn't have done again? And it's just, it's a big part of our culture.
How much time do you spend with customers or your team? Like, is that a priority for you? Spend time with them directly?
So I'd say, first of all, philosophically, I think in marketing, it's easy to get in a bubble, in an ivory tower bubble. If you're not out there talking to customers, you're communicating with each other in slides and diagrams and graphic stuff. And ever since, it was my second time in Salesforce. The first time I was at Salesforce, did product marketing. And, you ever see product marketing people arguing about, is this pitch right? Or this architecture? And we would just say, like, guys, stop arguing. We have an executive briefing center downstairs. Just go down there and go pitch this to a customer and let's see what happens. And, it cuts through all the bullshit of all the people in the room arguing with each other based on all their preconceived notions and all their mental traps. So I have always felt like if I don't get to talk to a customer at least once a week, my brain is getting stale. And so I make sure that I'm involved in a lot of customer sales cycles and focus groups. Like we have a focus group tomorrow we're doing in LA for our Dreamforce keynote, which is going to be great. But like a lot of what I talk to customers about is I talk to CMOs and MarTech teams about how we automate our marketing operations with Salesforce, and especially with this data cloud product, our CDP. Because for so many of our customers, having a great CDP is just this transformational infrastructure you need to be able to do so many of the advanced, sophisticated things that we all want to do.
So you mentioned before we press record, you got a little event coming up in a couple of weeks. That, of course, is Dreamforce. Can you give people an overview of what Dreamforce has become, what's going on this year, and how it fits into the broader marketing strategy?
Yeah, so Dreamforce is going to be October 14th to 16th in San Francisco. We'll have about 50,000 people there, really taking over the whole Moscone Center area and a lot of San Francisco. It's going to be my 10th Dreamforce personally. I'm really excited about it. And if you think about what we're trying to accomplish in this conference is we're trying to educate our customers about all this new technology, about this world of AI agents and how they can apply it across their entire enterprise and learn both from our experts and also from other customers that have done things. Sort of joke, like one of the best marketing strategies in B2B tech is combining your prospects, your customers, and alcohol and letting them talk. Now, it only works, there's two prerequisites. Your product has to work and your customers have to like you, which means you got to treat them well. And so that's a part of it. But in all seriousness, it's like very, very heavy on education, from helping business people with organizational best practices to a lot of highly technical hands-on training for customers. So we're going to have a bunch of new announcements, product innovations around our Agentforce product, really big breakthroughs we're going to unveil that will help our customers both speed up the time it takes to build agents and also make it way easier to build agents that consistently deliver fantastic results. And, we're also going to, we put a little preview out a couple days ago of bringing vibe coding to the Salesforce developer ecosystem, which we think is pretty interesting. The fact that we have this context layer of metadata that describes your customers and describes your business process really lends itself to asking an LLM to write code for you, because it understands, we have the metadata database to let people understand everything about your configurations. And so we think this is going to be really exciting for our developer community too.
50,000 people. That is quite an event. And what year is this for Dreamforce overall?
This is the 16th year.
Yeah. So it's probably a good segue. One of the things you mentioned in our prep call is that you think of community as the flywheel. Could you elaborate on that? I'm assuming Dreamforce is a big part of that community flywheel.
It's a huge part. I mean, when I think of community, I think of the practitioners, the people who are hands-on with our product every day, are forming relationships with other customers and helping them solve problems and inspiring them to do new things. And so we do a lot to connect the people in our ecosystem, through events like Dreamforce, but also through our online forums, through sponsoring our community groups to have community events where we're not in charge and they can help each other on their own. And we provide some assistance to giving them an online training platform for free. And if you haven't seen Trailhead, it's our online training platform. You can get ramped up on how to use Salesforce, and it will tell you if you're doing it right or not. So this community is a big aspect because there's only so much that we can do. The scale of the customers helping each other is really, really amazing. And at the end of the day, like that's, a big part of marketing is it's obviously not what we say. It's, turning positive technical experiences, product brand, positive brand perceptions into word of mouth evangelism. I mean, that's kind of what everyone's trying to build in a community. And it's something, we've done great things at. We're never happy with the results. We're always trying to push forward and do more for our community.
Be curious what advice you have for marketers listening who, you'd be preaching to the choir when it comes to investing in community, adding value, all that, but maybe are within organizations that aren't so inclined or aligned or aren't in a place where they've seen the return of investing in community, in the way that Salesforce has over the years. How do you get started getting started? How do you kind of shift perception and behavior internally to be able to get budget and support to do more of that type of investment?
Well, I think it starts with, like, I think about this from maybe a first principles perspective of like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like you have these people that are using your product that you want to interact with each other in certain positive ways. So it starts with being empathetic to like, what do they need? Because if you don't, it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy, like you shouldn't go and build a yoga pavilion in your village if like there's wolves coming in and stealing the children. So you have to provide, safety and security before you do like self-enlightenment or whatever the top one is. And so before you think about like, how am I going to get all of my users to write all these, social media posts about how awesome we are? It's like, no, don't think about that. Think about like, what do they need to be successful? Is your documentation good? Like especially for developer-oriented products is like, you know, is it easy for a developer to use your product, look up the documentation of all the APIs? Do you have the right code examples? And when you get, to all of your practitioners, like, what are all the common things that people need to know on how to do it? Do you have YouTube videos for this? Do you have online training materials? So if they are happy, I mean, this is sort of the formula, like the happy end users are now open to evangelizing your product. Then if you have these happy people that are open to evangelizing your product, then and only then can you start to invest in programs like forming community groups, funding some of their events, doing hackathons, creating forums and online communities. Although I'd say the forums and online communities kind of go into more of the table stakes to get people open to evangelizing. But yeah, I mean, my biggest advice is be empathetic about your end users and think about their needs from the bottom up. Don't start with like, let me create a marketing program to give them some kind of credit if they go and post something on LinkedIn. When you haven't done the basics of having fantastic online training, you're kind of stepping too far and you haven't earned the right to ask them to be an evangelist for you.
So before we get to the lightning round, I think the last big question I'd love to get your perspective on is, obviously there's a lot going on in the AI market right now. Viren made a note that he was in San Francisco recently, and it seemed like every billboard was an ad about AI. Every big tech company is trying to carve out their niche. What is different about the Salesforce offering around AI, and how are you going about communicating that point of difference to the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest business is that we're focused on AI agents for business. This is not consumer AI. We're not building infrastructure, GPUs, or training models. We're letting companies deliver what AI was meant to be. It's helping you with business problems and doing it in a way that is safe. So we got to provide a lot of infrastructure for people to be able to use AI to improve their business results. So bringing all the data together, having what we call a trust layer to ensure that data is accurate, that security rules are followed, that all the compliance and harm guidelines are being followed, and then to integrate that AI into the business applications people are already using so that it's in the flow of work. And that's a big part of it. And so it's not replacing applications with AI. It's inserting AI right into the flow of work so people can do their work better, and then also providing new interfaces so companies can interact with their customers 24 hours a day.
And do you find it hard from a marketing and advertising standpoint to, find that white space in a market that's so noisy when it comes to advertising around AI right now?
It's a little noisy, but I'd say we try and stay true to what we're trying to accomplish, which is to educate our customers on what's possible with our Agentforce technology and inspire them to start to use it. And so a lot of it is use case education, because a lot of our customers, they've invested a lot in Salesforce, and it's natural for them to want to look at us for these things. But we have to put in their head and inspire them as to where all the use cases, from customer support to, automated SDR follow-up on leads to making your website have your best salesperson on it 24 hours a day.
All right. You up for a quick round of lightning questions before I let you go? If your brand were a pizza, what type of pizza would it be?
I would say it would be a pizza that someone had asked the pizza person to create 3 different pizzas in different quadrants with completely different things, that the pizza guy would be like, oh, wow, the person's interested in all that same stuff.
What is the best marketing campaign you've seen recently?
Honestly, my brain is filled right now with lots of bad marketing campaigns.
That's
And
good. That's
I'd
just
say
as good.
my marketing campaign pet peeve is more for billboard advertising. How I feel like at least 60% of all billboards that are produced didn't actually look at what are the font sizes that would work for someone driving a car. And you think it's that little bit of QA. Isn't that what people are paying these agencies for? Like, tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So that's one of my pet peeves, especially with all these AI ads that I keep seeing.
I love it. Well, that was the next question. What's your biggest pet peeve? So we'll check that off the box. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say to my younger self, I would say, hey, I know that you think these computer science classes are kind of annoying when you're in college and you want to do all this other stuff besides being in the computer lab till 3:00 in the morning, but you should keep taking more of them. I ended up doing about half the computer science major at Berkeley instead of the full one. And, I just feel like in marketing and the technology industry, you can never have too much technical knowledge because you got to understand what the ground truth is before you start to figure out how to position it. So you can always use more technical capabilities.
What is the biggest missed opportunity in marketing right now?
I think the biggest missed opportunity is people who forget about the benefits of education and they go too much to persuasion. I think there's a lot of products that they don't get stuck on convincing people why they should try them, but on educating them in really smart ways, using smart marketing tactics on how to be successful. So, some companies get this great with really strong PLG mentalities, but there's a lot of marketing teams I see where they don't look at education as really part of their job.
I love that. I think that might be the something in there is probably going to be the title of the episode. That is a great place to leave it. Ariel, thank you so much for your time. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Scratch is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with me, email me at eric@wearerival.com or find me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks for listening and see you next week.